Hey, welcome back on Welder Skills. Today I have a good old oil pan to fix. So let's get to it. Alright, so this is what's wrong with it. There's this crack I have to fix, and it goes on the other side as well. So let's prep it. I always start with a little bit of acetone to eliminate any kind of superficial dirt and oil, and I run 2 passes, switching to a brand new paper towel to make sure I also get rid of any traces of dirt I might have dragged around with the first pass. Then I move to a stainless steel brush and I insist until it feels clean enough. Probably even a little bit more to be sure. You can never clean it too much anyway, that's for sure. It's always important to have a pretty wide area of clean material just to avoid any kind of dirt traveling towards the puddle. Now, before I start drilling the ends of this crack, I like to run a cleaning pass around it just to point it out more than it can be seen. Sometimes the ends may go further than you can catch with your eye, or you could have other cracks hiding around, and just a cleaning pass without puddling the material much helps to point everything out right away. I started with quite a bit of mix AC/DC set on the machine, around 50%, just to have a precise arc and to put more heat into it, but it was probably too much and I switched to classic AC to have more cleaning action. It was definitely better now since the material was not very thick, and it's important to take your time with this step to pull out as much dirt as you can and burn any traces of oil that might have been trapped inside the crack. Plus, it helps heating up the material, and if you don't have any kind of preheat equipment, this is your best friend. So take advantage of it. So as you can see now, it's pretty clear where the crack starts and where it ends. So I'm gonna drill it, grind it out, and then start welding. I usually use a 3/32 or a 1/8 drill bit for cracks like this. If the material is not very thick, I like having smaller holes just to avoid filling too much of a gap. If it's thicker, I step up to a bigger drill bit just to keep things safer and avoid snapping them. Ask me how I learned that lesson. Then it's time to grind the crack out, and I'll go down about 50% of the thickness just for the first side. I like having a little bit of support from the back side, and it also helps from shrinking too much when it cools down. Now it's time to actually weld the thing, and I take my time good and well before starting to move on, just to help the temperature to build up. Once it's ready, I start adding wire, but not too much, just enough to help the porosity disappear, and I stop whenever I see any popping out, just to give it more time to gas out. With gentle tap of filler wire on top of that, and you're good to move on. The first pass, it's always a game of patience, as you try to understand how bad is the material, and it sure likes to test that patience every single time, throwing at you all kinds of dirt and porosity. Just don't let it win. There's still gonna be some of it left inside, but that's why you always grind out the first pass. The more you can pull out to the surface, the less you'll have to grind out later, so take your time. I know it seems like it's taking forever, but if you do this right, the second pass will be way nicer and faster. Just as promised, look how much better is this second pass going. The puddle is clean, there's no dirt bothering me, and I can travel faster. You just have to keep paying attention to any kind of porosity popping out when you run the second pass, and if there isn't any, you did an awesome job with that first pass, and you can go on with the finish pass. You may have noticed I'm using a gas lens and the number 5 Pyrex cup, and I didn't go crazy all of a sudden, don't worry. I still prefer standard number 5 for all my aluminum. But this cup helps me film things better so you can see a little better what I'm doing. It enlightens everything and you can see through it. I set the machine at 150 amps, but I'm not using all of it. Probably just 120 give or take, and I just play with the foot pedal as needed. 120 Hz is what I mostly use, but if the parts are thicker, I like going down to 70 or 60 Hz just to push more heat into the part. A 332nd tungsten is more than enough for this job, and I use gray just because it suits better the kind of work I do all around. Any other color would work just fine, except for red and green. I really don't like those two on aluminum. You can make them work, sure. I just don't prefer them if I have other options. Red needs extra attention when you prep the bowl to avoid nodules on the tip, and green carries way less amps than other tungstens. It just feels obsolete. So I just eliminated them from my toolbox, and I only carry one for everything. Now, with the puddle being so clean, I decided it's pretty safe to consider these as the final passes, so I'll just run another bead to cover the entire area, and then I'll move to the other side. When I grind the other side, I like going down at least half the thickness or even more to make sure I eliminate all the dirt trapped inside and the crack is fully restored with clean material. I grind until everything is clean, and in this case it didn't take long considering how much I punched through. When I start on the back side, I always take a moment to inspect the area as the arc is cleaning everything around. Sometimes there's hidden porosity popping out or buried dirt I didn't grind enough. In this case, there's not much of that, and I can take care of it by pausing for a second when I get to it. Just make sure everything is fused and absorbed by the puddle before you add rod, and make sure you don't leave any craters around when you end your beads. A gentle tap with the filler wire and a few circles with the torch always help with that. And this is how the backside looks now. After a quick pass with the wire brush, it's time to pin it. I had to speed it up a little because it was taking forever and there's a lot of banging involved, but if you want, I can leave it at normal speed next time. Alright, so here's a quick look at the settings I use. I had my machine set at 150 amps, but I really didn't use all that. Probably just 100, 120 amps. 5 seconds of post flow, 0.8 seconds of pre-flow, so I have a long torch. No mix AC/DC, just a little bit of offset, a little bit more EN. AC frequency 120 Hertz. Tungsten size, I set the machine on 0.5 just to have a really pointy tungsten. The balance was around 65% EN. The cup was a number 5, an edge cup, Pyrex, just because it's easier to film with. It lightens the area a little bit, and you can see the pointy tungsten I have even after I finished the job. Alright, that's pretty much it. As you could see, it was nothing complicated. These jobs are pretty common and it's less complicated than it seems. As long as you follow a good method, you get them done in no time. A crack like this, it wasn't that big at all. It would probably take only about 30 minutes. It took me about an hour because I had to film everything and move the camera here and there, but I was actually pretty surprised because the material was pretty clean. I only had to grind it once and then the powder was flowing nicely. There was very little porosity, if nothing at all. So I'm pretty happy with the result. As always, if you have any questions, drop a comment or send me a text on Instagram at TIG Happens. Thank you for watching Being Power Welder Skills and see you next time. Ciao.